This is not about you. The premise of the show is simple. I wanted to ask folks from underrepresented communities to share conversations with a white, straight, cisgendered white guy. That's me. We had conversations about some pretty basic things and then went deeper. My hope is that these conversations can be shared and help folks like me and other folks who want to get engaged in social justice movements understand how to not be a burden and actually show up with our whole selves. This episode is my conversation with Sarah White. I'm particularly excited to share this. Sarah White is one of the people who inspired me to make a show like this. She is somebody who I've had the privilege and luck to work beside and connect with and engage with in several different kinds of ways. So I am really honored that she was willing to be my 10th and final guest of this first series of episodes. You can connect with the show on Twitter at NotAboutYouPod. You can connect on Facebook /NotAboutYou. And you can listen to the previous episodes. There are 9 other episodes on your various podcast apps, napod.com. You can also send me comments and questions, levi@napod.com. Thank you for listening. This is Not About You.
Hey, my name is Sarah White. I am a singer, songwriter, photographer, mother. I also do some video, and I also teach yoga, and lately I'm realizing that I'm a culture creator. So I bring different cultures together into space and work a lot around social justice. I identify as a Black woman, femme, she, her, and as a queen, wild one.
I like that a lot. Well, Sarah, thanks for talking to me. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
I'm going to start with sort of a question that I think covers a lot of ground, because even in the list of the work you do and the person you are, I feel like there's any number of roads we could walk down.
Yeah.
But I know you stand out in spaces that you're in. I know that from being I've been at nonprofit events, and you've been the hired photographer. And there's a thing where you don't look like everyone in the room.
Yeah.
And a lot of people are kind of excited you're there and they're not sure why.
Yeah.
So I'm curious if you can talk about the challenges of sort of being how you are and looking how you are and trying not to let that just be the story of you, like getting to actually be a person when you're in various places and with various people, rather than them just deciding, oh, I know who that person is. She's blank. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting because I feel like it kind of right away creates some separation, where I feel like definitely the help. I feel like I can't tell if people recognize me for what I do outside of photography, or if they recognize me as someone who shouldn't be there, or if they're looking at me because they think I look cool or interesting. But there's a barrier where oftentimes people will stare at me but not come up and say anything to me, not acknowledge that they've seen me at the last 6 events, not ask me anything about what I do or my rates or how I'm feeling that day, or if I need some water. I'm kind of like this separate entity, like this, almost like this little ghost floating around, and people they'll acknowledge me and smile even, but I don't feel like I'm always included, in the space. And it's weird. Wait, what is the exact question again?
No, you're totally hitting on it.
Okay.
It is...
I'm just trying to figure out how you ended that question.
Where does that separation come from?
Where does it come from?
And
okay,
where do you think it comes from? And do you know really why people feel that thing about? I hear people say, because I've had the experience of being able to be in the room when you're doing I've been in the room when you're the DJ, when you're the photographer, when you're the singer. I've seen you in all those contexts. Mm-hmm. And people say things about you, like how great you are. So it's complimentary, but it always feels a little strange to me.
Yeah,
and so I wonder if you can, if you feel that strangeness and what that does to you.
Well, it's interesting because as a woman and an artist and a woman of color, I already have my own narrative in my head that I'm like talking to myself about. And so when a lot of those interactions don't actually come to me, I'm like wondering what other people are thinking, because they're not coming up to me saying things, but they'll say, so-and-so said that they saw you at this event. And, I can't figure out where it stems from. And I think it's interesting, but it creates more separation from us. I don't feel ever bad when somebody comes up to me and says, I can't remember your name, but I saw you here, or I really respect your work. Most of the time it's mutual, and I want to build with these people too. And I think it's really beautiful that I'm invited into these spaces and paid to be there oftentimes, but it leaves a hole and a gap when it comes to me actually getting to network with these people that could help me. Network with these people that share common ideas and common goals with work we want to do in our community and city. I'm often like separated as the hired work, whether it's the person that brings in the music or the person who shoots the photos or the person just kind of to like diversify the scene or the event. Oftentimes I feel like I leave kind of feeling empty because I don't really get to actually build with anybody. I don't know why that is. I don't know how to change that, but I think that yeah, it's deep. I don't really understand how to answer that question.
Well, I think something you're touching on is it's not even the things people are saying negative things to you. It's that they're not saying anything at all.
Mostly, yeah. I mean, most of the people that will come up and talk to me are people of color. Are the people that will come up and interact with me more than just like, hey, like are people like me. They're like the artists in the room that are like happy to be there. Like most of them are my friends that if I'm shooting, they're singing or they're DJing or they're shooting as well, or they're bringing the food. And there'll only be like a handful of people of color that are in these spaces, and most of them are operating in a different class or a different field even, where they're actually the ones that are running these organizations as well. So they're speaking the same language and they're all in the same world. They all work in the same offices. And then we're kind of like separated on a different level where we don't know how to get to those people. We don't know how to speak that language to like talk to the people that actually like hand out the money or give the bigger opportunities that aren't just like for one day or for one project.
So there's like a class separation almost.
Yeah. On top of all the other separations.
Yeah.
On top of it, I know that like I express myself creatively a lot through the way that I dress and the way that I adorn myself.
Yeah, can you talk about that a little, just for people who don't know what you look like?
I mean, so like right now I have dreads that are like, they're like kind of blondish, and I have beads. Okay, I cut them into dread bangs. Like the dreads weren't crazy enough. Locks, I should say. Not dreads, locks. I cut them into lock bangs, and then I put little gold beads all over them. And I always have like, I just like to feel royal. It makes me feel better in my skin after having a long time of not feeling good in my skin.
And there's a majesty to the way your hair looks right now. Like
I love it.
Say. Yeah, there is.
And I kind of push that, but because of that, I stick out. When I walk in, people are like, who is this person?
Yeah.
Why do they have lock bangs with gold beads on them? And I'm like, because I want to. Yeah. I'm a queen, know? But, so I already get like looks, on top of all the other things that we're talking about. I just have a really, I don't want to say exotic, I'm going to say eclectic way of expressing myself that doesn't fit in often in nonprofit spectrums with events, or, if I'm shooting at an orchestra, I'm going to look like the artist in the room.
Well, it's funny, we all do sort of a performance of self, like that is a thing. Mm-hmm. But I feel like one thing I get from you, just from talking to you and from how you do sort of adorn yourself, is I think you might be closer to actually expressing yourself. And a lot of us are finding ways of covering up ourselves rather than letting the covering also show ourselves.
Yeah, and it took a lot of work. I mean, I grew up in spaces that I was the only one that looked like me for so long, and I wanted to fit into what everyone else looked like. I straightened my hair. I tried to like dress the same way all my white friends dressed that had more money than me. I tried to kind of keep myself quiet so I didn't stick out too much. And after growing and learning to love myself and learning the weird quirks about myself and learning to actually embrace the parts of myself that made people uncomfortable, I started to actually like live in it more and feel it like truly in myself. And then I started to decorate that. You know, I'm like, what makes me feel safe and happy? And I almost created like a shield around myself. Like I do these things to make myself feel good, not for anybody else. And, you know, having like gold beads on my bangs make me really feel the royal treatment and energy that I really want to like live and exude for myself and for my daughters. And it makes people laugh in the grocery store sometimes, or they're just kind of like, you're so shiny. Yeah. But I'm like, yeah, I am shiny.
Yeah, you know? I wonder how much, it feels like there's like a piece of jealousy to that idea of like, I wish I could be that way.
People say that to me a lot. I wish I could do my hair like you. Yeah. I wish I could wear the kind of stuff you wear. I wish that I could celebrate my body the way you do. And I always laugh because I'm like, just do it. You know,
I don't know if this is accurate or makes sense to you, but I do feel like there is part of the black-white separation.
Totally.
Is I get a lot of white folks thinking you're allowed to be interesting because you're black. Oh, and there's so many layers to that idea.
And this is a new thing. Like, it's not a new thing, but I'm saying right now I'm getting it more than ever. I think because of a lot of black, especially black women, are really like, you know, the Solange and Beyonce's are helping everyone to really like step it up. You know, like, forget it. We don't care. We're, you know, heels on a Monday in the grocery store, like, because Beyonce did it, whatever. Yeah. So it's like the more we're getting louder, the more people are kind of like, that's not fair. You get to do that, you know? And like, I spent 20 years trying to fit in, and now it's not fair because they're like, it's not fair. I wish my hair would do that. You know, you can do that because you're black. I can't do that. And it's not fair. I mean, I went to the liquor store and just yesterday, and the lady who checked me out was telling me I was shiny. And then the guy kind of had to join in and talk about it. And they were just saying they wish that they could kind of express themselves like that, you know, but they can't because they're white. And I was just like, are we having this conversation right now? I just want to buy my nice glass, my bottle of red wine and keep it moving. But we had that conversation.
So when those things actually happen, do you have to decide, I'm going to be kind and not make these people feel like, I mean, that feels a little microaggression-y?
I have to decide each time. I have to make a decision on the spot. Because sometimes I feel like I do need to say, yo, I don't want to talk to you about this. Yeah. Because sometimes I don't have time to.
Right.
And other times I can just kind of like smile and nod and keep it moving back away slowly. And sometimes I have to like actually let them know what I think about it. You know, like I don't think that it's appropriate, you know, to really call someone out on the way they look and then compare that to yourself. And, you know, especially if you want to like reach out and touch them without permission.
Is that happening to you a lot?
Oh, yeah.
For each of these 10 episodes of Not About You, I put out requests for folks to call in with responses to questions that come up in each episode. So a few people left voicemails, and I'll be sharing some of those in the middle of some of these conversations. You have reached the Not About You voicemail line. Leave a message after the tone.
Hi, Levi. It's Taj. Okay, so the question that I'm going to answer today, or attempt to answer, I should say, is why is it not okay to touch or even ask to touch a black woman's hair? Because it's not. Because it's not. I don't really feel like I need to elaborate. It's just not. And if you don't know, I think you should do your own research on why that's the case. Okay, bye.
Now let's get back to the conversation.
You know, like, I don't think that it's appropriate, you know, to really call someone out on the way they look and then compare that to yourself. And, you know, especially if you want to, like, reach out and touch them without permission.
Is that happening to you a lot?
Oh, yeah. I mean, the first thing people do is, like, reach their hand out towards my whatever is shiny. Yeah. And I have to be like, slowly back away. Like, no. And same with my daughters. They have huge hair, and everybody's reaction is to pet them. And I have to decide how I'm going to react. Sometimes I have to react with like a strong hand. Mm-hmm. Sometimes I have to, ask them politely, don't touch their hair. Yeah. And sometimes I just kind of have to like let my daughters stand up for themselves and see what they're comfortable with.
Because they're going to have to know how to do that.
It's going to be their life. Yeah.
That feels like a white person stereotype of trying to touch a black person's hair,
like
especially a black woman's hair.
Like a meme of a white person reaching.
So I'm surprised, and this is totally from a place of ignorance, like I'm a white man, so like I couldn't be further from that experience, that it still happens. Like I feel like you have to have not seen any TV shows or had any conversations with anyone.
I don't even think it's on purpose, though. I feel like a lot of people, they know better.
Yeah.
But it's just kind of like... It's like their natural reaction.
Like in a museum when you're like, I'm not supposed to try and touch this, but...
It's almost like a fuzzy cat, or something where you're just like, I should ask first, but my hand is already in motion. And I watch people catch themselves. Yeah. I think that now, luckily, it's like more talked about and people can kind of see their hand going without knowing and then like pull it back. And I don't have to have these conversations about hair touching as often as I used to, but... Still definitely like once a week, which I think is too much.
Well, you have to be on guard still. Like you have all these categories where you kind of have to keep an eye over your shoulder.
I'm always watching. At any point in time, somebody can touch me or do something that makes me feel triggered or uncomfortable. And especially because I'm a performer and a creative, when you get off stage, the first thing people want to do is interact with you. And they want to like share the experience with you, which is really beautiful. It can backfire really quickly if everybody's not like in their present mind and body at the time. And doing that work just to like give each other like the healthy space that they need. You
mentioned getting sort of responses from white friends when you were trying to, I don't know if it's code shift or what the hair straightening and the trying to look a certain way, like I don't know what the term would be for that kind of thing, but of getting feedback from them. I'm curious about then and even now, what are the things you get where someone's kind of telling you you're not doing culture right? Like you're not behaving in the right way for a black woman or behaving in the right way for any number of like even are you dressed right for being an employee in this professional space for this event?
Yeah, that's a lot. It's interesting because it's changed, I guess, because I've developed more as a woman and as my own self and embraced my own identity more. But definitely growing up, just starting with my name alone being Sarah White, it wasn't a name that was really common at all in Minnesota for Black women. And right away there was a lot of resistance with that, just trying to understand why that was my name. And then from there, why I spoke the way I spoke. I grew up in schools in like Southwest Minneapolis, even though I lived in the hood and South Side. And so everyone around me spoke different. And my dad is like, this is the way you're going to speak because I want you to be able to articulate everything. He didn't say I want you to sound white by any means. He didn't consider the way I spoke as a color. But out in the world, right away, I was identified as someone who spoke white, acted white, and had a white girl name. And so I would get off the school bus often and get chased with people chanting, white girl, white girl, white girl. I'd like go home and cry myself to sleep because I didn't know what I was doing wrong. Like for me, my skin is very black, but I never fit in the black world or the white world. So that kind of carried over once I became such an eclectic artist on top of it. I'm like, great, I can't even fit into like a societal space either. And oftentimes I've let go of a lot of that, but a lot of people still feel like maybe concerned about certain style of events that they'll hire me for, just wondering kind of like, what will I wear? And that comes into like my mind a little bit where I'm like, oh, this is like a corporate event. How should Sarah White dress for a corporate event? Like how can I fit into what I should look like for this event? And then I look in my closet and I don't have anything for that. I'm like, no, just got to be myself, and I know I might stick out a little bit because of it, but yeah, I just got to be me. And that's all I can say about that.
Yeah, no, that's great. I'm really curious if there are also times when the fact that you don't, I don't know, give in and fit in those ways, because you're an amazing photographer. Like, the work you do is great.
Thank you.
And in the room, you're wonderful. Like, you make people actually be at ease. So you do all the things someone would want from that kind of work. Mm-hmm. So I wonder if there are times when you being exoticized by folks is an asset, and it's a reason they want you in the room. And
totally.
How is that also not necessarily okay, even if you get to pay your rent because of it?
Totally. And okay, so yeah, I think that I was kind of speaking on the negative side of it, but on the positive side of it, I think right now in the world, people want someone like me in the room more. It's important. It's important for them to have that, to feel like everyone's included and represented. It's important because it does bring some ease. Just like it brings ease to the space, seeing that like someone like me is there too.
Right.
So then it doesn't seem as inclusive just for like people like them. And
like we've dealt with that problem.
Exactly. Like,
there's
look,
Sarah.
Sarah White is here. It's me or it's Trisha. There's like 5 of us.
Right.
And so I go to any of these big events and I just look for us 5. I'm like, all right. But I mean,
are you allowed to both be in the same space, or is that too much?
It depends, because it could be obvious, like we're giving it away, that we just like got the Asian and the black girl here, and they're both friends. They're going to talk about it. Be careful. And me and her joke about it a lot. Like, we look on panels, and we're like, is Trisha there? Is Sarah there? Like, who's on there that represents us?
And this would be a good time just to mention you and Trisha make a podcast.
We do. We have a podcast called Don't Die.
Yeah.
Yeah, you got to check it out.
It's great. It's really honest.
It's really honest conversations, unplanned. We have a lot of amazing guests, and we talk about things that kind of just come up naturally that people are afraid to talk about. Like, almost like you get to be a fly on a wall and just kind of listen in to what we talk about in our normal.
Yeah, it's like, but it's like health, money, trauma, love, like all those things, all sort of seamlessly integrated.
Yeah, seamlessly late night.
Yeah, that's why it's seamless.
Yeah. But I think that the problem that comes with kind of like tokenizing people like me is that, again, there's that disconnect. Like I'm put in the space and it makes everyone feel at ease, but it's not necessarily really benefiting me or bringing me more than like that moment of wealth or that night of experience. I will say that I do get a lot from the conversations that I get to sit in on, but I wish I was invited to be there or even paid to be there without having to always work.
Yeah.
Because I think that my voice is needed, even in like these kind of situations. Like, now at this point in the world, we need voices like mine to push us forward. We need to be really like, we as in I need to be really vulnerable and expressive for other people to think about things they want to change. And that takes so much energy and time and space. And that's work that I've been doing for like 20 something years that now people want to suction out for free, And it's like, a lot of people want to just have coffee and like understand more about what they can do to help, but they don't realize like all of this is like emotional, spiritual, mental work, and like work that I've had to do on packaging trauma to be able to articulate it into like these words or these songs or the way I look at things through my lens. And I need more for it. I need more than you expect.
Right.
And it's hard to articulate that on my end because it seems like, how am I even explaining that I need more?
Right.
Based off of what I've had to do to create this type of content.
When your work isn't fully separate from your life. So it's hard to say
at all.
I need compensation for the life I'm living.
Seriously.
Because of what it adds to the community.
I mean, that doesn't sound like a real thing, but that's what I think it's coming down to right now. I feel like it's coming down to us as a community needing people to like pour more into us without us having to beg or work for it, just so we can all get stronger and be able to communicate and articulate more clearly and actually like all move forward. And that's not a thing yet. There's not a grant for that.
No.
I'm trying to find one, but there's not. So I think this is something that like...
Where's the Powerful Queen Fellowship? Like that.
Can we make that up?
Yeah.
And I feel like a lot of people would laugh. Like this is some kind of joke, but it's like, this world is going to be dull and uncolorful without like the creatives and the communities of color getting fed, and we can't have to beg for it.
Well, you're touching on something I think is really powerful, and you're an artist, and I think that's another lovely additional layer. But even without that, in my experience, which is still growing around, particularly community organizing, but around equity, around justice, racial justice, but really all the social justice movements, the most powerful yet least acknowledged voices I almost always see are Black women. I feel like Black women are somehow more equipped through just having these lived experiences to hold multiple complex ideas at the same time that seem contrasting, that people really struggle with. Like, how can I be full of joy and full of dance and love and also full of pain and full of suffering and admit, here's the effed up problems in the world and here's where we should be, and I know those are both true and I am upset, but I'm not raging and yelling at everyone all the time. That feels like a thing that is not acknowledged enough. That Black women are fighting for everyone, often except for themselves. And I'm curious if you kind of just talked about this, but if you do see that through all sorts of different spaces, and if you have any ideas about why that is, like why that is a specific sort of subsection of folks who have this ability, and also why that ability has for so long been viewed as not worthwhile. Just women in general viewed as not worthwhile, and then people of color, particularly Black folks, viewed as not worthwhile. And then there's this intersection where it's Black women who do tons and tons of stuff, and mostly people want to not even see them.
Okay, so you just said a lot of things.
I did,
and then you kept
I
going.
got all fired up.
Oh
I know,
God.
I'm sorry.
Right away, I was like, this is my whole identity,
Okay, yeah. Let me explain you to you.
Yeah.
That's what called
You just did
mansplaining.
Yeah. So here's what I'm going to say. I'm going to try to think of all the things you said, but I think that if I could answer that, it would be like the answer to my life. It's like, this is something that every day there's a new awakening around the idea of it, because that's my identity. It would be different if I was like a Black man breaking it down, or a white man, or a white woman breaking it down, or, an Asian woman breaking it down. But it's like, I think this goes so far back into just like our ancestry and what's running through our blood based off of like layers of experiences and trauma and different lifetimes, that it's really hard to like even know where to begin with it. But I think this year was the first time I realized that all the Black women in my life were literally like running stuff, and like they were the ones holding up the Black men, holding hands with the upset white people, making sure businesses were running as usual, making sure the house was running as usual, making sure that like all of us within our community were feeling emotional and spiritual depth, making sure we were creatively inspiring new movements and new events, and making people dance and making people laugh and making people feel good the way they eat and the way flavors taste. Like, nobody cooks like a Black woman, you know what I mean? And like, nobody rubs your head like a Black woman. Like, and I'm not even saying that other people don't do these things, but it's something that I know right now in my mind and spirit and soul to be true as like something that we do. And even when you look outside of it bigger, and the movements of change with social justice and human rights, and even what's going on, with the protection of land all over, oftentimes it is just not only Black women, but women having to hold that space and having to still go home and take care of their families, or having to still not look exhausted or depressed or angry or stressed, and it's a lot of pressure. It's a lot of weight. And I live in that space every day where I'm kind of like a ping pong ball going back and forth, trying to figure out how to have checks and balances. And I don't know how it got this way, but my mom didn't teach me to take on the weight of doing all these things. I just naturally stepped into it. My mom's like, she didn't tell me I had to be this way. It wasn't something that I was trained to do. It's just what I do, and I can't figure out how to undo it so I can be healthier. It's just the way it is. And I think what we need is for our culture, you know, as a society to...
You mean American culture, right? Not
American.
Not black women culture,
no,
but like
American culture to maybe even just start making lists and thinking of all the ways that black women are holding space. Maybe just first, if we can figure out like what this is worth, figuring out ways to take some of that off, some of that responsibility off, or supporting, you know, like supporting black women in new, innovative ways that you've never thought of before that we can't tell you to do. You know, come together. And,
right, because that's the burden. Like, okay, now we want you to also figure out how we can help you.
Yeah, and I'm like, I don't know. I'm drowning in trying to make the world run. You know, like, I don't know how I need help. I just know I need it, and I'm not going to ask for it.
Yeah.
I'm not. I don't know how to, because I don't know how to articulate what I need, but I know I'm drowning. And almost every other black woman I've talked to lately is saying the same thing. They're trying to just keep it together. But on the outside, they're like the rock, holding things together. So it's like, how do you live in that space?
Well, so you're also raising future black women.
Mm-hmm. 2 of them.
You're modeling behavior. Are you talking about this with them too? I mean, they're old enough to have questions, ideas, opinions, desires.
Yeah, I mean, it comes out in different ways. Sometimes it comes out with frustration where like I'll cook for 3 hours and they'll just kind of like eat the food and throw everything around and just be like, whatever. And I'm like, do you know all the things I've done today just to make sure you have a healthy, beautiful, organic, tasty meal? And then like I've been noticing them showing up for me, especially the older they get. Like my oldest will be like, Mama, thank you. You're one of the best chefs I know. And she'll try to like fill me back up again. And she starts taking on, I watch her already taking on some of that role where she's like, Mika, go tell Mom thank you. And she starts trying to like take some of the weight from me. So it's kind of like we're bouncing this weight back and forth. And that's when I kind of step back because I'm like, I want you guys to do this differently than I do it because I'm burning out in the way I do it. So like, actually, no, be free, go run. Like, go do something else. Which I know might be a little problematic because I'm then doing it all myself, but I just think at this young age, I don't want them to carry that weight, you know, of trying to help me. So I'm like, go dance, go run, put the music on loud, do that. And maybe that's how I learned it from my mom. She silently did it all.
Yeah.
She never taught me how to be like it, but she silently did it,
right.
And I watched her.
We're always teaching.
Yeah. So I'm doing the same thing.
Yeah.
We're doomed.
Yeah. Or, I mean, you're doomed for having to carry that weight, but there's a weird built-in safety for the rest of the world.
Well, not even though. I'm not even saying... I think that, like, we're put here because we have the capacity to do that. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like, black women are strong. Mm-hmm. We had to watch our husbands get, like, murdered and our sons get murdered and, like, we've lost so much, but also, like, still... been able to be who we are, you know, and like, I think black women are strong for a reason. So I don't want to say it in a way where it's like, poor us. Like, I don't feel bad for us, you know, but I think right now is our time. I mean, if you look at, not to bring up like Solange again, but it's like...
bring up Solange too many times.
I mean, I've been listening all day, but like, I just feel like it's kind of like we're stepping into this space where it's like we've already been like queens before. We've already ruled before other times, you know, in this world. But it's kind of like, all right, you guys are making a mess. Like, we got to step up and just be like, yo, it's not for you anymore. Like, this music is for us. We're going to feed ourselves. We're going to like, it's almost like this like nuclear like mechanism that has to refuel itself from within. Like, I think there's a lot of beautiful power that we're blessed with, that we, you know, need, and we re-feed ourselves with it, and I wouldn't want to be anything else.
Well, so there's one thing there's a lot of things you touched on, but there's a part here that I want to, I'm going to ask for your help in articulating, because I often, towards the end of these conversations, ask how we can help, how other folks can help. I feel like you've already touched on a lot of that, but one thing I want to just, I don't know if it's unpack or get into a little bit, is what I think you're not saying is you don't need heroes. You don't need dudes to come and help you in that sort of caping way. That's not what you're talking about. I think you're talking about creating new systems of support, new awarenesses that support is needed, warranted, deserved, rather than come tell me how to do it, come show me how to do it, come solve this problem. But I think that's a really nuanced challenge.
Man, there's so many different layers to that, because initially, yeah, it's like I want to say I don't need somebody to come save me.
Right.
But I've been noticing lately sometimes you need somebody to come save you. You know, I had somebody come and fix the raised beds, a white man, fix my raised beds in my garden and weed for me without me asking. Changed my whole day. You know, and like, I'm not saying that's what we need as a model, but like, we need different ways of support, you know, without us having to ask for it and break it down all the time. And I think that I have a friend who came across some land through a white woman who had a lot of money, and she wanted to help balance out things going on within our country, reparations, and she bought her $1 million worth of land for them to go with POC and build on in upstate New York. Like, that to me was a powerful way to make a change and support a Black woman. Like, she came up to her and said, I want to do this for you. It wasn't like, can I please propose this way for you to help take this weight off of me? It was like, what do you need here? If you really want to help and you have the means, find some really direct ways to take a load off, or to help support a movement that's already moving, or to help create, like, yeah, a new way. Like, if you even think about just art funding, a new type of way to do it without maybe having to understand how to speak grant language, you know, just like something that you see somebody already doing this work and they've been doing it all this time, just give them $100,000 to do it better. You know, to me, a lot of it right now I'm saying is money, because that's my personal thing.
Yeah.
That's what I need, where I don't have to run around and chase all these gigs and be the token Black person in the room every single week. You know, is like, I need something to like take that weight off of my day-to-day life. But it's different for everyone, so I can't speak for like how to help all of us. But I think that there's a lot of different ideas that you can kind of work on. Did I answer the question?
You did. I love that. Well, what you went such a spectrum, because you're like, sometimes it's okay to go weed a Black lady's garden. I don't know if it as a metaphor.
And don't be creepy about it.
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
But like,
say, hey, is it cool if I do this? Or
yeah,
do
I mean,
and
all Black women might not like that.
No,
they might come
that's
out
the
with
trick.
Come out with a bat and be like, get out of my yard.
Yeah.
You know, like, it's really, you got to be sensitive into different ways you can help. But sometimes it is that simple.
Right. But also, it's totally fine to give a Black woman $1 million worth of land. Like, that's a wide spectrum.
If it's something that you can do and walk away from, if you're doing it to help yourself,
not to be a leader
better,
and own that. Yeah.
If it's something that you're going to need a lot of attention for doing, then that's adding to the problem. If it's something that you truly can do, whether it's fixing a garden or dropping some land or passing over a grant without the person requesting it, or whatever it is that you come together and figure out that you want to do to help support, if you can do it with a true heart, that's going to be more than anything on paper. You know, it's going to mean more, and it's going to be real. And I think that's what we need now, is like realness.
Yeah.
More so than anything else.
So that self-awareness about intention seems really significant.
Intention, and just like love, not to be a hippie, but like, if you're doing an energetic exchange and it's true, that's going to reflect out, and other people are going to mirror it and feel it. It's a feeling, you know. It can't be something that you do just to make yourself feel better about being white, you know?
Yeah, don't do it just to feel better. I think try not to do anything that if it's just about feeling better.
Well, I mean, I know you want to feel better, so it's good to do things, but, you know, really try to go into yourself and figure out, like, why do I feel this way? How do I really feel about doing this? Is it because of guilt? You know, and if it is, go into that. Why do I feel guilty? You know, like, what does it feel like to feel guilty? You know, go into how it feels in your body, put a name to it. Breathe through it, stretch through it, cry through it. Do that work first before you come to approach the situation, because then it's going to be real. Yeah. You can't bring Don't bring all the garbage with it. Don't bring out the dirt and pain with it. You know, like, really do the work first on your own. That's what I would say.
I like that a lot. Like, you wouldn't bring that to a dinner party, so why bring that if you're...
Yeah, we got enough going on. Bring me some clean, radiant light. And money.
Sort of at the tail end of this, just because you've already gotten at so many, I think, really rich things. Before we started talking, you were like, I don't know how I'm going to sound smart talking about this stuff. And you've articulated some things really well that I didn't have a full understanding of. So I hope you know that.
That's
as well.
cool.
I'm all for lowering the bar on yourself before doing something, because then you can succeed. But
I think a lot directly from my heart, and sometimes my tongue gets tied around the way to express it, because that's just the way I live in my body.
Yeah.
So sometimes I get intimidated by things like this, especially speaking on the way I feel.
Yeah. Yeah. So I appreciate that.
Thanks.
But you're an artist. You make music, like you make and perform music, which also means that's often probably a really good way for you to communicate.
Mm-hmm.
Can you talk about specific ways, because I get the impression it's all ways, but talk about specific ways that you are able to make music you make that is healing for yourself, and or that also serves the community you care about, supports the community in that way, that through that art form you're able to be doing that work of healing and of dealing with difficult things and calling them out, but in a way that feels love and peace and, I don't know, sweating through it.
I feel like I've been pretty blessed with my whole musical experience, because my first band was Traditional Methods, and we right away used our voice to talk about what was going on with police brutality. I mean, this is 2002, but we talked about what was going on in our government and with oil and, with bodies in the streets. I mean, this is no new thing just because of social media, but I kind of right away, just being like a bratty kid with a lot to say, wanted to use the microphone to make people listen to me talk about what was going on. And the more we did it, the more I would see that people came together. People were like, we need you to play at the rallies. We need you to play at the protests. We need you to play in this basement where all of us are going to be, because all these people were struggling in the streets trying to understand how to feel. I'm trying to fight back against the system, fight back against the police. And together, once we came together and spoke on these things on stage specifically or on our albums, it empowered more of us to know that it was okay that we felt this and that we were together. And so that right away was really weaved into the way I created, because I created not only thinking about what I felt inside, but knowing that what I felt inside was important for all of us to hear and important for all of us to feel. And I would have people hit me up and say, even I was having a really hard time, in my body, in this world, and that one song, It's Cool, which is a really beautiful, cheesy song, helped me to want to not kill myself. Mm. It helped me to have a moment of peace and feel like everything was beautiful. And your sultry, raspy voice just kind of warmed me up or whatever. It's a lot of responsibility, but I just felt like, man, this is what I'm here for. And that's why I get pretty upset sometimes and passionate around the idea of funding and just supporting creatives like me, because lately I've been thinking about quitting and getting a job because I don't want to struggle. And I know my tool is really important for people, and it's important for me. Without it, I don't know who I would be, and as I've grown and learned how to create in different ways, my music has changed. Maybe I'm not rapping about police brutality, but I'm singing about Black being sacred, because I need to feel it in a different space now. I need to feel it in a more healing space, because around me is all destruction. Every time I open up my phone, I'm seeing the bad parts of being us. So now my role might be just creating a space where people come in and feel warm and feel lush energy and feel feminine, queen, radical, sexy energy, because they need that after they've been on the streets all day marching, or my CD release party at Ice House. I was worried that all the activists wouldn't want to come because we had been out, on the streets already, and they all came because they needed it. They came and they needed to be filled up with warm energy and love, and Black love at that, and so it's kind of all weaved into what I do and what I think about and what I experience, but it's also a responsibility that I'm not willing to fully let go of, because I think we need more of it in the world.
Yeah.
I'm such a hippie.
No, that's
what I truly feel.
That's perfect. You do a lot of stuff. Where can people go on the internet
to find me?
To find you as a photographer, as a singer, and find your work? Like, what's the best place?
An easy way to find me is if you Google Sarah White Black. I had to add the Sarah White Black because it was so uncomfortable that I was just Sarah White. And there's a lot of other Sarah Whites. You can find me if you look for Sarah White Black. If you want to find my podcast with Trisha, you can go on Instagram, and it's at Don't Die Is Life. Or you can just look up Don't Die Podcasts, kind of add a Sarah White Black in there and you'll find it. For me on like Twitter and Instagram with my personal stuff, it's at Sarah White Black. If you want to find like my websites, you can go under Sarah White Music. I'm on Facebook, I'm on everywhere like that. And then my photography is Photos, it's Photos for Barcelona. So you can find me at Photos for Barcelona on Instagram. I'm on Facebook. I'm all around the world.
And what are your photography rates?
My rates are, I was telling you before, pay me what you'd pay a middle-aged white man. And then add on for all the things we talked about.
Yeah.
Add on for my life experience. Yeah. Like, give me what you think it's worth.
Yeah, the lived bonus.
The lived bonus.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I made it.
And on time, please.
Yeah. Well, Sarah, I really appreciate you taking the time to talk to me.
Thank you. Thank you for talking about these things.
That was my conversation with Sarah. I hope you got something out of it. I know I certainly did and continue to. This conversation is one that is sticking in my head, even though we had it way back in October of 2016. I can't really say enough how much I appreciate Sarah spending time and sharing so much about herself, deeply about herself in this episode. I hope you will do pretty much anything she said, because that's a way that I try to live my life. If Sarah says it, it's the right thing to do. Go check out her music. Go check out her photos. Hire her to play shows. Hire her to take photos. Support her in any big or small way that you can. She is truly one of the strongest and most talented people that I know. If you'd like to leave a comment or a response to this or any episode of Not About You, you can find us on Twitter, Not About You Pod, Facebook, Not About You. You can send me emails, levi@napod.com. And I'd love to hear feedback about what you think about any of these first 10 episodes. So this is the end of the first season. There's been 10 episodes. I hope you've listened to some or all of them. I would like to keep doing this. I'd like to find some season 2, the next thing to do. I am in conversations with a few folks. I have a lot of amazing people in my life who can articulate some of these challenging concepts around experiences that I do not have. And I'm hearing good things about this show. But I also want to find ways to make sure I'm doing it where I'm not being a burden to these people who are my guests, and where I can really engage and grow my own understanding of self and my own understanding of the work. So I'd love to hear what you are thinking and what this is like for you if you're getting anything out of these conversations. Levi@napod.com, @NotAboutYouPod on Twitter, Facebook, Not About You. Also, you can leave an iTunes review. It helps more people find the show and helps broaden out these conversations. The Not About You theme song is Rebels of Our Own Kind by Twin Cities-based musician Charlie Van Stee. Go support Charlie as well. I really appreciate you listening. This is Not About You.